And something about jumping on the ice, you get into this collective mindset where you can engage with someone that you've just literally met 5 seconds ago. You just have that passion for the game. And a lot of it has just general interest in a commonality. Well, I'm Jay. I identify as a queer non-binary person. I fell in love with hockey when I was 13, flipping through channels to find something to watch, came upon the San Jose Sharks, and I just remember being like zoned in. For some reason, something about I didn't know anything about it. I just knew there were people skating around, knocking folks into the boards. And that is the thing that I laugh about now because I'm so critical about injuries and stuff like that. But something about something about that made me go, whoa, that's intense. What is this? The whole aspect of the game just kind of mesmerized me. And from wherever that came from in that moment, I told my mom, I want to learn how to ice skate. Something about that. And she was like, all right, well, she signed me up for lessons. And then I I got gear. And yeah, I just, even though things happened in my life where I didn't end up going through with it and, you know, thinking back, I'm like, darn, I wish I had gone through with like everything. But it still came back to me later on in life. I'd say 10 years later, I became friends with someone who was like, hey, do you want to go to a Sharks game with me? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. And it just pulled me right back in. I was just like, I love this sport. I love this sport. And now that it's back in my life, I need to take the step that I didn't do when I was 13. I need to get on a team. I need to play. And that's what I did. Now, I remember the reason why I didn't do it when I was 13 is because of the cost. When
Right.
I was told in order to buy all the gear to play, to pay for the fees, it's going to be this much. And I just felt like I knew I was a kid that just loved everything. I wanted to engage and do all this stuff. And something about not being 100% certain that this was something I wanted my parents to invest essentially thousands of dollars into.
Hmm.
I said, I can play a cheaper sport, but nothing came close to the passion I felt when I watched hockey, when I was out on the ice. It was just a consolation prize for me to not burden my parents. But when it came back into my life 10 years later, I'm like, I have money now.
Yeah.
If I decide I don't like it, that's all money that I invested, and that's fine. I don't burden my parents with the cost. And but as soon as I invested in gear and got into a team, I've never looked back. I've I've gone deeper and deeper into the sport. I started out as a winger. I found my passion at center, and from the get-go, I've always loved goaltending.
Oh,
And I finally found an avenue where I could test the waters without dumping millions of
thousands.
dollars.
Yeah.
Because that was another thing where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to love it enough. And I don't want to buy all this stuff and realize I don't love it enough. Of course, as soon as I did like a tryout, I was like, no, I love it.
So
I want,
are you a goalie now?
I'm both.
Well, I'm a goalie. I played professionally as a goalie, and Jay,
Yeah.
who's on the Zoom, is also a goalie. And the other interview we did today, besides Jay, was also a goalie. So it's like there's the queerness and goaltending seems to go hand in
Yeah.
hand. You mentioned something about like at 13 recognizing the cost and being so self-aware that you indulge in so many sports and
Mhm.
activities. Like that's a lot of self-awareness for such a young person. Do you think that self-awareness has helped you discover who you are?
I've always, anytime I felt something, anytime I experienced something, I'm always analyzing why did I feel that way? And also because I love learning about things because I want to understand. And from a young age, I always knew that when people made a certain comment, I always internalized it, and a lot of those comments ended up being related to how I projected myself to society and how they, you know, saw me. But I could never understand it beyond just being told, like I'm AFAB. And I remember, I don't have a good relationship with my dad, but one of the things that always stuck out to me was anytime like I'd shake my leg at the dinner table, he always told me, don't do that. That's not ladylike. And I never understood, what does that even matter? What does that
Mhm.
even mean in relation to me? And so I just shook my leg even harder because I was upset that I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything. You're not telling other people at the table. But at the time, a lot of it I understood was gendered and I didn't understand why. I just knew that I was fighting something about myself in relation to society and them telling me there's something wrong with you because you are not like other AFABs. And I remember there's a turning point in my life where I feel like a little bit of it was because of societal pressure. And also because I think I kind of wanted it in a way where I started presenting more feminine. But the turning point for me was when I learned that I wasn't straight, that I was queer. And that was not till my early 20s where I fell for a best friend of mine who is a trans man, but was born AFAB. And for me at the time of that, obviously that was something, I'm not just like, this has never happened before.
Mhm.
What is this? And somehow realizing that opened up clarity to me of all the things in my youth of why that bothered me. And it was like, it just, it validated me in that how you are is has nothing to do with you. It's just how society is placing you in a box and telling you that this is weird to us, so stop it.
And it's pretty cool that, like you said, there was moments in your life where you dressed more like female presenting or feminine and other points, and I think that's an expression in either way. And the same way you went harder with your leg when your father told you not to, like that's just you expressing you. And that is so beautiful and powerful.
Yeah.
What do you love about hockey?
When I think of hockey, I think of teamwork. I think of how it opens up. I'm introverted. I'm very reserved. I have a hard time opening up to people. And something about jumping on the ice, you get into this collective mindset where you can engage with someone that you've just literally met 5 seconds ago. You just have that passion for the game, and a lot of it has just general interest in a commonality. But the fact that hockey has just been such a huge passion of mine, it just amplifies the connection because you're around other people who understand that layering of the passion. And I felt like the fact that the league I got into is co-ed, and somehow that helped me with my gender identity to almost mask the fact that I'm AFAB. I get there's so many instances where as soon as I put on my helmet, I've had referees being like, pull me aside and be like, I need to make sure that you're over 18. Because I somehow, when I'm masked and the stature of me, it makes me look like a little boy. And so it amuses me that now I'm almost like, the aspects of me that seem to be highlighted outside of the sport are disclosed when I'm playing the sport. And the fact that I play in a co-ed league, it helps to not make me feel like my gender needs to be like, a topic. I've also, the league that I play goalie in is a women's league, but they're very inclusive. The tournament team that I'm on is co-captained by married women. There's some of like my closest friends. And so it really helped to also allow me to speak openly without feeling like, because I've been on some teams where there's misogynistic comments being thrown around, and that really alienated me. I left that team after that season because I'm like, there's no camaraderie. Like, as soon as we started losing, even like that aspect, people were like at each other's throats. And I'm like, nothing about this team speaks inclusion to me, on
Mhm.
top of the fact that I'm not invisible. You understand that I'm on this team. And I remember there was a moment where something happened on the ice, and the guy sitting next to me decided he was going to make a comment about how lame the dude was that was on the other team. And I don't really want to repeat it, but essentially he made a comment that used female genitals as like derogatory.
Right.
And I was like, I sat there frozen, like, did he just say that? And I saw at the corner of my eye, he looked at me because he realized, oh, fuck. But he didn't say anything after that. He didn't apologize, anything like that. And I didn't even want to bring it up because I was just like, I'm done with this team.
Mhm.
So, there's aspects of that I've run into, but collectively, it's combination of the stuff that I mentioned has helped me like continue to enjoy the sport, because I've seen folks that don't have that capability, especially with trans youth right now.
Yeah.
And it just breaks my heart that,
It seems to me like the co-ed league almost allows you to fully feel non-binary and just
yeah,
exist. And the women's league or team allows you to be in the most inclusive environment,
right.
which is kind of fascinating. It's
Yeah.
really cool. How could hockey be better for you?
The NHL could be a whole lot better to not make me feel so frustrated. um yeah, I mean, that's the main thing that's on my mind, in relation to how connected I am to this sport. The fact that the top league in the world, I mean, right now, like, give me a break with all the pride stuff right now. That posts about, oh, we're gonna share stories about our allies, and I'm like I can't even express an emotion for that, because it's just like, what do you even want me to you want me to clap about it? I'm not sure. And it does make me struggle because the Sharks, had they been on the lists of any of those Chick-fil-A franchise, I don't know I'm almost like thankful because if as long as I hold on to a team that at least is showing some signs of inclusion, with like having Curtis on the team, like
Mhm.
something to grab onto. I feel like that's like my lifeline because
And
I'm getting frustrated with the league.
yeah, and I think, what happened with the league actually sparked this.
Yeah.
When I saw that tweet, and then I put out and had 5 or 6 wonderful people, including Jey, offer to help pull this together in a short time where we can celebrate queerness in the sport. I will say about the Sharks, I know they've worked with Renee Hess from Black Girl Hockey Club for Teal for Change, which seems like a pretty good initiative that they're starting. I did their podcast recently with Curtis, and it seems like they're headed in the right direction, which is great. And it kind of leads me into the next question: is what keeps you in hockey?
The leagues that I'm in for sure,
Yeah.
had I not had those, I don't know if I could, because of the aspects of you're part of a team. And if I felt alienated by the team, if I wasn't able to have a voice in the team, I mean, that takes away like the capability of enjoying your time out on the ice. And so I feel like that is the main factor that keeps me passionate about the fact that I have these opportunities, that I'm not settling for something, and that if something were to happen in the locker room, like my co-ed league, I mean, my teams are majority men,
Mhm.
but they are people who I've gauged over the last, I think I've been with the team for like 5 or so years. I've gauged that if something were to happen, like I haven't heard comments, and I don't think it's because like, oh, Jay's here, let's not, I don't feel like it's something like that where they say it behind closed doors or something like that. I've so I feel like had I not found these teams, had I not had opportunities, around my area that were inclusive, I wouldn't be in the sport.
That
And
makes
so
sense.
that's my main drive, the fact that I'm within an environment, because I mean, I live in the Bay Area, like I wouldn't expect anything less, but it still
Yeah,
happens. There's
completely.
still places where like you have to stop someone and be like, we don't say that. Um, and I've lived in other areas where it's reiterated to me that it's not everywhere.
That makes
Just the
sense.
fact that
That
I have these opportunities to feel accepted is why I continue to be passionate about the sport.
those inclusive communities matter, right? They empower and uplift. What gives you hope for queer people in the sport?
Folks like you, advocating for it, making it essentially your life's work to do that. Um, just things like Black Girl Hockey, just organizations that I know that, okay, they're there. How do I help?
Yeah,
Um, right. So social media also is something that, I mean, didn't have that growing up.
yeah,
So it's amplified awareness. And I feel like that gives me hope that the youth are more aware of themselves and the tools at their disposal, that they are less apologetic, less conforming to society, that I feel like we're we're gonna make more headway in the long run because they're starting at such a young age. So the youth give me hope as well.
well, can I tell you something?
Sure.
You give me hope. Your
Okay.
self-awareness, your ability to critically analyze culture, your visibility, being an openly non-binary person in society is so courageous. Those kids are seeing you, and that's powerful. And you're changing the world. And we need more like you in our sport and in our society. So thank you.
No, thanks.
Well, again, I want to thank you, Jay. You are an incredible person. I can't wait for your story to be shared and to see how many more people relate to it and are inspired by it.
No, thank you.